there, thanks for joining me today. My name's Jo and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in the UK. Today I'm going to show you how I've made this card here. Now this is using the free papers, yes I said free, that you can earn currently from the Celebration promotion. So with a qualifying order you can get various items, but this paper is one of those. It's really pretty and it's got all these lovely little elements on some of the pages as well. So other than the greeting, I have not used any other stamps to make this project. So I'll show you on the next one I'm going to demonstrate exactly how you can do that. So this is our card front. It's very pretty. I've made the paper sort of a main feature of my card, and then we've got this little arrangement with our happy birthday here, and then when we open our card it sort of rocks backwards and forwards. Now this was a design that I saw online, but I don't know who made it or you know, how it was put together, so I've had to sort of work it out for myself, and it seems to work really well. So the only thing, I have made this frame here the same size as my aperture here, but on the one I'm going to be demonstrating I'm going to make it slightly larger because it does have a tendency to catch on this edge here, so I think that will probably resolve it, so we will see, but hopefully that will put things right. So I'm going to show you how I've made it. It is quite simple to make, it's just getting the mechanism to actually operate properly, but hopefully with the correct measurements and everything else you should be okay. So let's get going. So I am using a standard C6 card. So this is the metric card, which is 21 centimeters across by 14.85 tall. It is then scored at 10.5 to give us our card base. I then need 3 pieces of DSP, and these are all to measure 14.35 by 10 centimeters across. So I'm using, on this occasion, I'm using this colour for my front, and then these two are going to be positioned inside here. Okay, so it's entirely up to you whether you want to make them all different or all the same, or coordinate different parts. That's entirely your choice. So that's obviously what we're doing here. It's also very pretty, that one. So this is actually the paper, the reverse of the paper, where I've cut all the elements from, so you can see all these bits and pieces. I have pre-prepared some of this just to save a little bit of time, but I will show you exactly how I do that in a moment. So I'm going to start off with adding my pattern DSP to the front of my card. Now I do just want to make sure that I've got a reasonable amount over all areas, because I'll be cutting it out. I want to make sure that what's left behind is actually stuck. I wouldn't normally do quite as much glue in the centre of my piece there, but just for this occasion we need to, just to ensure that we're going to be okay. Okay, so now I'm happy that that's all stuck in place. I'm now going to stick one of my other pieces onto this inside section here. So this is the side that you would normally write on. This is one of those cards that you can either write, sort of put a panel for writing on here, or even here, or onto the back. So it's one of those you can just have a play around with and see what you think. Now I'm using a striped paper here in the horizontal layout, so when I stick my second piece on I just need to make sure I get it the right way, otherwise my stripes won't follow and then you'll find that it looks a bit disjointed, so just bear that in mind if you're using a direction. Okay, so that's my starting point. Now the first thing I need to do now is to cut out my window. So for these I've used the rectangle stitched framelets. So if I just bring in those framelets, you can see which sizes I've used. So if you take this big section here, it's the third one down, so that's that one, and then the two following it. So they all nest inside each other, so you can see exactly which ones I've used. And we need to do some cutting. So one of the things I need to do is to cut a window in the front of my card here. So this is obviously my window here. I need to cut a frame, and then I also need to cut layers for the back. So I have pre-prepared these because I wanted to obviously not hold you up too much. I wanted to get on with the main job at hand. So these are the sections that I've cut out. As I say, I have gone slightly larger this time. So on my original one, I didn't have this third one. I used just these two. And I just found, as I say, that it was catching just very slightly, which I think by using something a little bit larger will just stop that happening. So fingers crossed that is our solution. So if we take the first two, you need to cut yourself, first of all, a border of out of a colour that you've chosen. So on the original I used Night of Navy, and for this one I'm using Rococo Rose. Obviously it looks a bit distorted at the moment because we've got a very dark background in the middle, but this is going to be lighter, remember. So this piece will effectively come through this window. So what I did was I cut with the two smaller ones, I nested them inside each other and cut myself a border. Okay, and then finally with the last one, the largest one, that is what I've cut my navy base from. Okay, so you need your base one, you need a whole one that's the next size down, and then you need the same size but with the window cut out of it. Okay, so that's been done. So now what I want to do is to cut my window from my actual card. Now I want my window to be the smallest of the three. So this is going to be my opening effectively, okay? And then this border will be on the outside. So I can put the two larger ones to one side. What I've done is I've actually pre-prepared this just to save a little bit of time. So what I did was I placed these two together like this. So literally just lined them up on my desk. I then stamped my birthday and arranged my flower arrangement in the middle. So I did all that ahead of time just to save, as I say, a little bit of time. So the actual birthday has come from the Pretty Perennials stamp set, which actually coordinates with this paper, so they work really well hand in hand. I'm going to be adding this happy to my page in a while, so you'll see that. So I just wanted birthday because I'm going to be adding happy on my card front, and then I've literally just cut these little pieces, as I say, from that piece of designer series paper. So all these little elements have just been cut out of here just to build up a sort of a little bouquet, so it all sort of max and coordinates together. So now that I've done that, I need to say, as I say, I need to cut out the front of my card. So what I want to do is I've obviously used the larger one for my piece here. Now I need to make sure that this is going to I can put that to one side actually, that this is going to go inside my card. So I don't want it hanging out. It shouldn't do because of the border, but just make sure. I'm actually going to line it up sort of with the edge of that paper, but I want to come down a little bit this time. In fact, I'm going to go in a little bit, I think, to give myself a similar border either side and this section here. Okay, so I can see this is roughly where I want to cut my window, because I'm going to have my happy going across the top here. So as long as I'm sort of aware of where that is, I would say it's probably just over 1 centimetre in from either side. Now if you want to, you could use some low tack tape or something like that just to hold your die in place. Now this is obviously going through a layer of card and a layer of DSP, so you do just need to bear that in mind and perhaps run through sort of 2 or 3 times if necessary, just to make sure that it's actually going through. So I'm just going to lay that down very carefully, just make sure it's lined up, which it is. And then I'm all cack-handed, I'm using my other hand, that's better, there we go. So I'm just going to cut this through. This will crack a little bit, especially when it gets to the other end, and just go through. And then I'm just going to go back again and one more time just to make sure. Don't worry about those clicking noises, they're not going to hurt it. It's just where the dye and everything is going through, it's quite thick. Okay, so I'm going to pop that to one side. So now very carefully I'm just going to remove my piece. So that's my window cut. And obviously I can use this piece for another card somewhere along the line. So that's going to be put to one side with my die. So now what I want to do is to work out my mechanism. So this part is done, but I just need to put some paper on the inside here. This of course is entirely up to you, depending on sort of how you like your page to look, but I thought it was quite nice just to cover paper on both sides. It just finishes it off nicely, I think. So this time I've just put glue around the outside edge, and then I'm just going to put some glue around this edge of the window so that I know that it's all stuck firmly at that point. Okay, so as I say, make sure my paper's up the right way so that my stripes run together, which they do. Okay, now I need to cut the window from the front here. Again, I did try to put the 3 layers through the die cutting machine, and it is just too tight. There's no point in trying to force something because you'll end up breaking your machine. It's quite easy just to stick this down, and then I'm going to take a knife and I'm just going to run my knife down these edges just to cut the actual window out. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you could line up your paper, draw the rectangle and then pop it back through your cutting machine, or failing that, you can actually use a pair of scissors to do the job that I'm just doing now. Okay, so it should pop out. If they don't, just nick those little corners. There we go. So again, there's another little piece there. It's the beginnings of a little card you could make yourself there. So don't waste those little bits. Okay, so now that part's done, I've got my window open. I'll do the decoration on the front as my last thing. I just need to build my mechanism here. So I'm going to put that to one side. And again, you do see part of your mechanism. So you see this part here. You could decorate that if you wanted to. That's, you know, that's entirely up to you. I felt it detracted from it if I did decorate it on this occasion. So we'll see what it looks like on the other one once we're done. So I'll put that to one side again. So you need to cut yourself 2 pieces of card. The first one needs to measure 14.5 centimetres. So I've just got this offcut that's been left from the project. And you need to cut it, and just making sure I've got a straight edge there, which I don't think I have. So I just cut that to straighten that up. That's better. So I need to cut this then at 4 centimetres. So just to recap, that's 14.5 centimetres by 4 centimetres. Okay. I'm then going to score this at 1 centimetre. Now I do my 1 centimetre on that side, and we're now going to turn it round the other way. Again at 8.5 centimetres, and then again at 11.5 centimetres. Okay, so you'll be left with this piece. If I just fold it quickly. So you're going to be doing like a concertina sort of effect on it. So you've got this 1 centimetre, then this large section and 2 equal sections at the end. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to cut a piece that's 4 centimetres wide, I'm going to leave the length for a moment just to give me something to hold on to. But I need to score this at every centimetre. So number 1, number 2, number 3. So I've got 4 equal sections. I'm then going to turn it around and score at 1. I then want to score it at 3.5. And I'm just turning it around quickly because I'm then going to cut it at 4.5. Okay, so you've got these 2 sections. You've got this long one here, and then we've got this little one, which if I quickly fold it so that you can see, I'm not actually going to fold that center one because I'll show you why in a moment. So you've got 3 sections going down and 4 across. So now what we need to do is, first of all, we need to remove 2 of the corners. So they're just 1 centimetre little squares. Okay, now what we need to do on the other end of this, we're just going to cut across to that first score line, and then I want to just take half of that square away. Okay, I'm going to do that again, straight across to that first score line, and then just half of the section is taken away. So you have these little tabs here. The next thing I want to do, so on this side with the tabs, I'm going to cut straight up the middle until I reach that very end score line. So we've just got these little hinge sort of happening here. Okay, so if I turn that round, these sections in the middle I'm going to fold over and glue down. So it's just going to give us a double layer, gives us that little bit extra strength. Just make sure that they're stuck nice and firm. So what I want to make sure is that these aren't catching as they open and shut, which they are very slightly. So I'm just going to come back in and just trim away any excess that appears on the edge. It's just where you've scored it, sometimes you get a little bit of excess hangover, so you just need to remove those. That's probably okay. Just at the very top, I can feel it catching just here. That's it. So just make sure, as I say, that they move quite independently of each other, which they do. So that's great. So this part is joined and this part is split at the end. You also might find it easier to cut a little V just up to that first score line. So we have this sort of little bit cut out. That isn't essential, but it sometimes makes it a little bit easier to put through the mechanism once we actually get there. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is to quickly take a ruler and a pencil, and I want to just mark a point that is central to these sections. So these are 3 centimeters across, so I'm just going to mark it at 1.5. Okay, I'm just going to do the same the other end as well. So it doesn't matter if it doesn't have to be absolutely precise, but just so we've got a rough idea of where those center lines are. Okay, so lining this up here, I need to make 2 slits. Okay, so these are going to be for these little tabs to go through. So at that point, I just want to cut up to the middle. So lining that up just in the middle, so I've got equal distance. Again, you don't have to be precise, so don't worry too much. I'm just going to mark a pencil mark this side on this one, and then I'm going to make a pencil mark turn that round actually so it's easier to see. So equal distance, so I'm going to mark a pencil mark just here. Okay, so I've now got a pencil mark here and here, and what I want to do is to cut a slit. So I'm lining up the original pencil marks I made here, and I'm just going to cut a slit. I want it to be about 1 centimetre, but don't worry if it's a little bit bigger. It really won't matter because the mechanism will be stuck in place anyway. So it's just a rough sort of centimetre line. So if I just take those pencil marks off. I'll move my cutting mat out of the way because I don't need that anymore. So as you can see, I've got these 2 little slits here and here, and this is my mechanism. So now what I need to do is to put the 2 pieces together. So it doesn't matter which end you start with, but you need to just push that little tab out of the way. And I'm going to, I need to make sure that obviously I've got one either side, so just make sure that you're working with the right side. I'm going to pop that little through that slit there, and then it pops out the other side. I can just open that little tab, and that's going to be just to make sure it's held secure. Okay, I then want to take this other one, so you need to kind of bend it on back on itself, so it's like a leg, so it's like somebody walking along the road. Okay, I'm going to push that little tab in and pop it through the other slit here. Okay, and once that's through, again I can just open up that little wing piece. There we go. So they are going to be stuck down in a moment, but I just firstly want to make sure that they're going to sit flat. Okay, so the way I do that is just to line these up so that I have this section here. I just want to make sure it is square to this edge. Okay, so you might have to wiggle it around a little bit, and sometimes you might need to make a slightly bigger cut if it's not sitting flat. So just have a little wiggle, and then once I'm happy that that's in place, I'm going to glue this tab. And again, just give it a second or two just to make sure it sticks nice and firmly. Okay, I'm then going to open this up to make sure that that's okay. Just be careful not to sort of bend it in the direction you don't want it to go. And then I can, again, I can check at this end, just make sure that it's straight and that I'm happy it's going to actually sit straight on my piece, which that is as straight as it's going to get. I'm going to add glue to this tab here and then stick that down. Just wipe away any excess glue so we don't have any sticky mishaps afterwards. Okay, so now what will happen, if you can see, if you prop it up this way, so this is the legs are underneath. This is effectively, when the card opens, this is the mechanism. So obviously it's not, you can't see it properly at this stage. This is why I say make sure it's glued down properly, because once it starts moving, obviously that will make it prone to popping undone if it's not. Okay, so just you can just see roughly how that mechanism is going to work. So what I need to do now is to bring in my card. Now you need to make sure that it is in this position. So we have got a long strip, so this is our 1 centimetre, got our long strip here, and this section is on top, so our little legs are underneath. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to position this so it's in the middle roughly of my window. Now don't, as I say, don't worry too much if it's not exact. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be absolutely in the centre, but the nearer it is the better really. So as I say, make sure that this is up the correct way. So we've got the flat and then we've got this section here with our little legs underneath. So once I'm happy that that's in place, I'm just going to add some glue to this 1 centimetre section at the start. And I'm very carefully just going to close my card shut. You won't be able to close it properly because you've got your little legs here. But just on this section on the spine, just make sure you give it a few seconds just to stick down properly. And then you can open, just make sure you've got no excess. If you've got any excess glue, you can just pick that up accordingly just to remove it. And I'm actually going to take my bone folder here and just make sure that is stuck down really nicely. Okay, so once that is done, we now need to glue the other side. Now, I find the easiest way to do this is to lie it flat against your window piece with this little mechanism folded underneath. So you should find that this section here is roughly level with your edge. It may be slightly out. That is to do with our score folds and our cutting and everything else. So we'll trim any excess, but you do want to make sure that this is absolutely flat. And then add glue to that 1 centimetre section just at the end there. I'm then going to carefully close my card and just make sure that that sticks down. Okay, now you can see I have got this little excess here, so I'm just going to remove that, just making sure I don't cut the front of my card as well. Be a bit of a disaster. There we go, so that's now gone, and that is, this is going to get stuck at this point because we've got nothing on here, but you can make sure that this is nicely stuck. And once we're happy that it has stuck, then you can test your mechanism. So you can see it's working, but obviously it'll get stuck at the moment because we've got this window. Okay, so now what I need to do is to actually put my decoration piece on the inside, and then I need to finish decorating the outside as well. Okay, so as I say, just make sure they are stuck down nice and firm so that we're not going to have any mishaps. So what I want to do now is I'm going to glue my section that I spoke to you about earlier with my decoration on into the centre of my largest piece. So this was using the largest of the 3 dies. Move that a little bit, let's straighten that up. There we go, that's better. Okay, so now that's done, what I need to do is to position this. Well, to do it by eye is going to be almost impossible. So I find the best way to do it is to have your card sort of semi-open with this as flat as you can get it, okay? And then you're going to line it up here. Now, provided your actual piece comes through the window as you want it to, it doesn't actually matter where it is underneath. So what I'm going to do is add some glue onto this section here. So this is like our sort of table section, I'd like to call it. I'm just adding some glue. Okay, and again, I'm going to try and sort of, whoops, not do that. Don't want to get glue there. So just make sure you tuck it in so it doesn't get caught on that very edge. And I'm going to position this through my window. Okay, so I'm just making sure that it's where I want it to be. I'm then going to make sure this closes down. So you have to sort of be a little bit sort of careful, but if you can get it roughly where you want it, and then you can make sure then that it's straight. So I'm just going to line it up, make sure on the reverse that it's straight. So it's a little bit fiddly because you can't grip hold of much. So if I was doing this off camera, probably what I would have done, I would have stamped my greeting for sure, but I probably wouldn't have put this all on until everything was in place. But as I say, I just wanted to save a little bit of time today. Okay, so I'm just going to close that carefully. And again, just give it another little push, and then we can see. So as I say, it doesn't actually matter where it is in here, because as long as it's straight, when you close your card, it is going to just pop underneath. So it doesn't really matter where it is on the inside, it's where it ends up when it comes through the window. Okay, so this using this bigger one is stopping it catching on that edge, which is nice. So obviously that did work, just to use those slightly bigger dies. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure I haven't got any glue still left on that edge. That's it, so we're not going to get caught. Okay, so I can close that up. Now what I want to do is to add my border that I cut earlier. So I'm going to do that now. Again, you don't need to do this because it's purely decoration, so it's entirely up to you how you decorate your own card. You could also use a different shape entirely, so you could use a circle, for example. It doesn't have to be a rectangle. You could use more than one, so you could have, for example, if you've got some cute little characters, you could have sort of 3 little mini ones going up the page, or perhaps just a couple. You know, you could play around with it. The actual piece that was 14.5 centimeters by 4, you could make that narrower. So if you're doing 2 or 3, you could make those you know, just a little bit narrower, just to make sure that you've got plenty of space. So yeah, so just have a play really. So I've lost a gem off here somewhere in the process, so I should add another one on there in a second. So that border is now added. Let's say that's my happy birthday. So that's popping inside that window. I'm going to add my gem now whilst I remember. Must have picked one up on my finger, I think. There we go. So now what I want to do is to do my happy. So I'm going to stamp mine in Night of Navy. Just make sure that you give it a really nice covering of ink, because it's quite a big bold stamp, so you just want to make sure that it's got a really nice covering on it. Okay, and then going to just stamp that onto my card. So now I'm just going to fussy cut this out. So I want to leave myself just a little border just around the outside edge. Okay, so now that's cut out, I can just pop this onto my card, and I think that looks quite nice. So I'm going to leave that as it is. Sometimes I cut the middles out of the letters as well, but I think actually this will look better with them left in. I think it makes it a lot clearer. So I'm just going to glue this now. Don't be too generous with the glue, because obviously it's going flat down. We've got little sections, so I'm trying not to be overly generous. Okay, I'm just going to grab some tweezers, and I want this just to be on a slant, and I'm going to overlap it just slightly onto the border as well, just so that that happy birthday actually run in together. So I think that's all glued down. That's nice. One last thing I'm going to do is just to these flowers in the centre here. I'm just going to add a little bit of our Winkers Stella because it just adds that lovely lush sparkle to everything. I'm not sure if you'll even be able to see it properly on the camera, but certainly in real life it just adds that lovely glimmer to everything. Just on the little bits I can see. It's so shimmery that you don't actually need to worry whether you cover everything because the light just catches it wherever it lays. So there we go. So that is our card for today. If I just remove a little bit of glue I've got there, that's better. So if I bring in the original one here, and you can see how that just catches on that edge. If you're not completely flat, then it will just catch. It's not the end of the world because you can just sort of guide it underneath, but obviously it's much better if it doesn't do that. So this one, by using those larger dies, just rectifies that problem, and there we have our card, which will open and close quite easily. I'm not sure what to call this one. It's sort of a rocking motion really. So wouldn't that be lovely with a baby's crib or something on the end of it? That would look really nice. So anyway, there we go. I hope you like those, and I will see you next week for another Monday mashup, and have fun. Take care. Bye.